To get us started, I think we ought to talk about the history of the Highland Games in Scotland.
Well, I'll take that if that's okay. Obviously, the history books go back and tell you all about King Malcolm III reign and the clan chiefs challenging. The origins are essentially military based, as far as I'm led to believe, my understanding. And basically, they had contests of strength as a means of selection for the most able soldiers at one point. And that then evolved into maintaining your edge and a stronger camaraderie among the regiments. And they took up activities like fencing, boxing, running, other tests of strength, including Highland dancing and piping.
How have the games evolved over the years?
Well, from there, that grew during the Victorian times as a form of community or area event, and that seems to be very much like your county and state fairs in the United States. Um, there are still Highland Games today that incorporate agriculture and cattle shows, and that happens all over Scotland still. Children's events, and of course, events we now know as Highland Games events. Fundamentally, what we do nowadays is the dancing, the solo piping, the pipe bands, the wrestling, the heavyweights, the track and field, the dog and the sheep trials. So all fun activities that people can participate in. And if they don't choose to participate, it's very entertaining within the communities that it's been offered at.
So it sounds like Highland dancing has been a part of the games sort of since the beginning. How have you seen that evolve over the years and come into more prominence?
Well, I can honestly say I'm going to start with I'm the current chair of the Royal Scottish Official Board of Highland Dancing, and my teacher, Jenny Stewart Haggerty, MBE, was one of the founding members of the board. And all the stories that she conveyed to me as a youngster was how all the different parts of Scotland had different variations of steps. You know, the north of Scotland had a way of doing the Highland Fling, different steps. The east of Scotland did it their variation. The west of Scotland had another variation. So it must have been quite fun in those days, trying to adapt whatever games you were going to, wherever they were being offered. And I guess where evolvement has definitely the official board have embraced these changes over the year to benefit the dancers. And ultimately, we now have an adjudication panel that they need to achieve that designation through certification and training and ongoing continuous professional development, which in the past it was your local minister, your local solicitor, community leaders picked the best answer on the day. So it was a hit or a miss. I'm guessing that would be if it was a male solicitor who took his fancy on the day, not necessarily anything to do with the performance or the technique. So that must have been fun times. And I guess for me, we've come a long way. We also offer nowadays, in the last number of years, well, since my time, everybody gets a registration card, and we have a laid down structure that supports the dancer in their progression from their youth to compete against others that are of a like level in their technical components that they have to demonstrate. So there's a structure that is founded on the premise of the board that everything is as fair and equitable as we can possibly make it. So what do I mean by that? That the kids that are new to Highland dancing have a beginner card, and they only compete against dancers of that same level. And then they progress right through from novice to intermediate to premier. So it's as fair and it's educated based on what our foundations are of our technique, our timing, and our deportment.
So growing up with the Highland Games, do you have a favorite? Fred, I'll ask you the same question. Do you have a favorite games that you've attended that you look forward to still? Or has that changed?
I've got lots of favourite memories of various games that I've danced at throughout the world. But if I have to pick one, I'm going to pick one of our local games at Luss Highland Gathering, which is just, as we would say, up the road. It's about 8 miles along the Loch Lomond shore. And why do I say that is because to this day they still have all the activities in the main arena. So, but when I was a kid, there was the running track that you had to cross to get to the platform, and you were forever being told to, watch the runners, watch the cyclists, but all the activities happened, and you were able to sit at the side of the platform when you were waiting to go up and compete, and watch the solo piping, and watch the pipe bands, watch the just everything that happened throughout the day, and it was a fun environment. It wasn't quite as it was serious, but it's not as serious as some would appear to take it that nowadays. And the favourite part of the game was towards the end. They did this tilting of the bucket, where it was a bucket full of water, and somebody's in a wheelbarrow, somebody's in the wheelbarrow, and somebody's pushing the wheelbarrow, and they've got a pole that they've got to get through a tiny wee hole at the top of a slat. And if they don't make that, of course, everybody get drenched. So it was great hilarity, lots of happy fun times. Nothing to do with Highland dancing, but definitely part of Highland Games.
That's what we were looking for. Fred, how about you? What's your favorite memory for games?
My history with Highland Games is a little shorter than Christine's, and most of my competing days are here in California. Certainly Costa Mesa, which is our Western regional selection meet for the USIR, the US National Championships, that occurs in May. And when I competed, that was certainly an exciting day of the year for me, an exciting weekend. All of the best dancers in our region showed up. I love to compete, and I love to compete against them. And it was a great day. All of us gathered for that competition. It's a bigger game, so there was all the activities with the athletics and the pipe bands and with the vendors. So it was a great weekend, including the competition. For our smaller games here in California, I always love the Monterey games, which are right on the Pacific Ocean. It's a beautiful venue, a little smaller, more cozy. And as Christine mentioned, you see everything at a very close proximity, and the competition was always well done.
Excellent, excellent. I know for me, it's just kind of become part of looking forward to seeing the larger community, of a chance to get together and see the people that you only see at these events, whether they be vendors or pipe band people or the athletes or whatever. It's just kind of like a coming home. So no matter where it is, actually anywhere in the world, I think you can get that sense of community. And community is basically what this organization, the Chicago Scots, is sort of at the mainstay of our mission, is to form community. So I think the Highland Games in everybody's community and in everybody's life has served the purpose of bringing community together. With the rich history of Highland Games and each of the parts, the dancing, the piping, and the athletics, what are we doing, or what can we do to ensure that our heritage and traditions remain relevant as we pass them along to future generations? Kind of a tough question.
Is that one mine, Christine? All right. As Christine already laid the groundwork, in Scotland and in past years, we have a system to train teachers. We have a system to train dancers, and then they become teachers to continue teaching that tradition. As well, we have a training path for adjudicators, so that we're all certificated adjudicators are adjudicating to the same standard, keeping it fair and equitable. That's with the dancer registration system, making sure all the dancers registered under the RSOBHD system are competing against dancers of a similar ability. So the groundwork has been set by Scotland and ScotDance USA. We are the US agents for the worldwide governing body, the RSOBHD, which we are very pleased to be. And we support these systems with training of the dancers, then the training of the teachers, the training of the judges, the organizing of the competitions. We're continuing this tradition, and we're trying to engage. We continue to try to engage more people in our community, bring in younger dancers and encourage and engage our young teachers, our new teachers, so that they will bring in new dancers. We are revitalizing our alumni association again to bring in those faithful volunteers and who have worked tirelessly in the past, but love our activity, love all the Scottish arts, and are part of our community. And we're trying to bring them back as well, because we know this is a continuing effort to maintain, to educate and communicate to everyone about the Scottish arts and maintaining the tradition that we all love.
Excellent. As we're just getting ready and we're just seeing in the US, and I think it's happening in other places in the world, Christine, maybe you can expand on that. What a return to dance competitions is going to look like in the near future, and what a return to dance competitions at a Highland Games or the Highland Games in general may look like in the future, post-COVID.
Yeah, well, it's very topical just now, but just to give you an understanding of throughout the world, New Zealand are back to competing, as are Australia, as are obviously United States are about to be launched in there, which is all fabulous news. In Scotland, we have our first pilot event tomorrow, Saturday. So that's the good news. The good news is that we're able to start getting into a hall, getting the dancers to see what we need to do, the learning, the education for going forward. If we're still with some restrictive practices here, then what do we need to do? So the pilots will be our learning, and then in turn we'll be able to educate all event organisers what we all have to be mindful of, what we have to do, and that will all be dictated on an ongoing basis as the restrictions move either way right now. We have the Indian variant that's causing issues for us in Glasgow city centre and East Renfrewshire, so that makes life a bit complicated, but we're keeping going, and we'll work through what we need to work through to get the dancers who are crying out to get back to some form of normality. As far as the board's concerned, we have what we call a domestic steering group working to deliver an online presentation right now that will hopefully generate some spark into taking up Highland dancing over the summer, when the plan was originally to align it with when our school terms go back, you know, like dancing schools, to try and entice more younger children to take up the art of Highland dancing, or indeed the sport, and basically selling all the elements of the fun element of Highland dancing, the opportunity to exercise, the learning, the social aspect, and indeed the well-being of the dancers or anybody involved in any form of dance right now. I think that's really important. And so this whole exercise of formulating this presentation to go out online, whether it or whatever mode works, that it's imperative we get it now, especially during these times of unprecedented issues out there. So everybody's doing their bit, and I keep saying it at every opportunity. There's a wealth of opportunity through technology that we've been able to do all these teleconferencing platforms, utilize all the technology to keep the momentum going for lectures, for education, for training. All our plans that we had, we've been able to facilitate that going only because everybody that's involved has the passion to do so and is absolutely supporting through all their volunteering. That they're all individuals who volunteer their time for their expertise for the dancer at the end of the day. So I'm very proud, sitting as chairman, to know that all these activities are going to help whatever stage of COVID we're going into in each part of the world. And obviously Canada still have their issues with COVID, and on it will go. So who knows what we're going to be dealing with next, but everything's happening in the background. So if there's any dancers listening, please know throughout the world, if you're not up and running at competitions, we are doing everything in the planning side of it to facilitate that happening, so that ultimately everybody in our community is safe going forward.
So it's sounding like every one of the groups is sort of getting their own soft start, with the dancing coming back as a standalone event. And I think the Pipers are returning to that similar kind of format. Do you see any movement towards games, Highland Games being scheduled for the rest of 2021 that are going forward? Is there talk of that in your areas?
Well, from the Scotland's perspective, I can answer. There is nothing that I know of. All we have on every website is, and obviously we refer to and work closely with the Scottish Highland Games Association, and you just need to look at their website to see the volume of events that are cancelled. And it is what it is. And, you know, the fundamental part of, I can honestly, hand in heart, say there is no committee organisation of any local Highland Games in Scotland. It's their wish to cancel their event. It's the last thing they want to do. However, they have to have the people coming in the gate to make it financially viable, and borders are all closed. There's travel restrictions, so they're not going to get all the overseas people appearing at their games, and it's just not viable right now. So I don't know of many. I've heard people that are hanging off to see if the restrictive practices are improved anyway to facilitate it. But if there's any Highland Games, they'll be few and far between.
Fred, how about in your neck of the woods?
In the United States, I am aware that there are some Highland Games that are opting to, they are planning to occur this year. I say that with knowing the weight of responsibility that ScotDance USA has, because some of these games want to have a dance competition. And we're currently, the ScotDance USA is currently going through a competition registration process. All organizers who want to hold a competition this year need to apply, as usual, to ScotDance USA, because we register and sanction all competitions in the US. We're going through we've spent the last year since the beginning of the pandemic working toward guidelines. Once we were at a point where we could restart, we need to mitigate the risk involved and promote the safety of all members of our dance community, all members of the public who attend our events. It's a weighty responsibility. Christine's handling it on the world level. You know, our team's working on it on the US level. We are dealing with these applications on a weekly basis. We are striving to have organizers understand that we want to have competitions. As Christine said, none of us want to cancel. None of us want to have cancel events and have the dancers sidelined any longer. But we need to mitigate the risk. We would love to have the dance event in a secure location where entry and exit could be maintained and controlled, where we can do contact tracing in case, God forbid, we have a case of an infection, because we need to be responsible if that were to happen. Organizers are learning about these new guidelines, and there's a lot of them. Running a competition in 2021 will not be for the faint of heart. And there are organizers who are insistent that they want to run competitions during a Highland Games. We are doing our best to try to have those dancing venues move to an isolated area of the Games venue so that we can still control. We must control the entry and exit and of competitors, spectators for that event. Everyone will be wearing masks during the dance competition, except the dancers. That's their option. And I know here in the United States, we're a large country and areas follow different guidelines. But ScotDance USA governs all competitions in the US. They will govern to our ScotDance USA guidelines, and they will supersede any local or state guidelines. And that's the communication we need to give the organizers and the Highland Games organizations.
So let's imagine in 2022 that we're looking at COVID in the rearview mirror and we are able to return to games. Do you see the general public being excited and willing to embrace that? Are there things that we should be doing to position ourselves to help attract bringing people back to the destination events? I mean, Cowl, Christine, is going to happen. When Cowl happens, everybody's in. But how do we get people back to driving the 6, 8, 10, 12 hours to rejoin the community for the general population if you don't have a competitor? Any thoughts on that?
Me personally, I'm trying to maintain an absolute positive attitude and approach to it. And anybody that I have been speaking to, there is just a burning desire to start tomorrow. So I don't foresee it being a major issue. That once we get to that stage, it's in the rear view mirror, it will be all systems go. And anybody that was it was their passion, it was their love, and that before COVID, it's even more.
Yep. It's more intense now.
That spark is going to be reignited instantaneously, and the flame will be larger. I firmly believe that.
I do as well.
For the competitors, certainly. What about for the general public?
I think that's the same as well. We've all been forced to miss attending Highland Games events, Scottish arts events, listening to bagpipes, watching the athletes, watching the dancers. I'm missing a meat pie and a beer at a games. I can't wait to get back to a Highland Games. But we need to be taking measured, calculated steps forward so that we are as sure as we can be that we're taking safe steps forward, and be confident about our approach to the solution. And we will get past these pandemic conditions. It's going to take a while, and the cooperation of all of us in the world, within the Scottish community, or arts community, and out with that as well.
Yeah,
I'm confident we'll get there to where we were and even better. People are eager to get back to normal activities and the things they love.
Absolutely, I would endorse exactly that. I think it's everybody's responsibility that's involved in the education of the Scottish traditions to keep that education progressing and growing. And it's our duty to promote these events, probably more than what we were doing, just to keep it in the forefront. And if we do that, as well as the desire that's out there to have them, I honestly don't foresee it being a problem. But if we're wrong, then we go back to the drawing board and we then do what we need to do. Well, there will be an element of building and developing. I don't live in my own little cocoon. And like I said earlier, we've got already a working group looking at that and how we can promote it. And I think that's what every country needs to do that's involved with the Scottish arts, that we keep banging that drum and reminding everybody and promote it on an ongoing basis. But you have to remember that the people that are the driving force are your competitors, and your competitors have their entourage of people that support them. So it's those supporters by word of mouth and the promotion that brings us all together. And that happens on a worldwide basis. So whenever we're able to travel, trust me, I believe it will happen.
Right. I know that for whatever reason, several teachers have pulled back and didn't like the Zoom format or whatever, and there's been a lot of attrition, shall we say, in terms of the numbers. So I think the registration numbers are starting to pick up, but are coming in slowly in the US. I think that's a fair statement. So we have to be probably more vigilant than ever in terms of creative marketing to reverse the trend, to get people back interested in doing that. Do you see that as something that globally and nationally we are going to take up that that torch?
Absolutely, and I think again we've got steps in place. If you take, for example, the dancer registration, so the existing dancers that are competing and want to re-register. And I take your point, Nancy, that there are kids out there, there are teachers that don't like Zoom, there are kids equally that have had enough of Zoom. They're all yearning for the social interaction of their friends at class and being in that class environment. And I firmly believe that once everybody gets back to that side of things, the rest will fall into place. As far as the official board are concerned, they're doing everything in their care and their duty towards the dancer. The registration committee, every time there's a country, approaches that committee for how we can best extend the term of the dancers. So normally, as we know, that the dancers registration can be, they get stamps or they get a term, and that term is being extended quite significantly to support. Fundamentally, you could have a 5-year-old in this world right now who's involved in Highland dancing and has never had the opportunity to compete. So from that 5-year-old who hasn't competed 2 years out of their life, they've got a 2-year period of time that they can dance now in beginners, because they need to get that experience. So again, the support mechanism is there for each country as we progress into post-COVID arenas, whether it's games or competitions, that are supporting the dancer. And that's what I guess I alluded to earlier, that we're doing everything we can to support and drive numbers going forward for the building and the development.
As we're looking at our competition for students in terms of our local markets, and we're up against other forms of dance schools that are able to offer costuming with sparkles, glitter, and bling, which obviously is not currently a part of our dress code. Do you see there being any changes along the way from the traditional to attract that glitz crowd?
Well, we already, in my opinion, we already have that opportunity within the world of Highland choreography events. I know that's certainly the case in Scotland. It's always quite an interesting. We have the traditional attire for each of the dances, whether it be the traditional Highland events or whether the lesser known Aboyne outfit, your sailor's hornpipe, your jig. But when the kids go into dancing solos or teams or duets, etc., that's when we start to see the little bits of glitter and bling. And so long as there's some form of relation to the music and Highland dancing, it's good for the kids. It's a different type of release, but it promotes what we do and supports the kids being in different activities. If you're asking me, sparkles and glitter on a kilt outfit, I think we'll stick to the braid, if we don't mind, on the jackets.
I think Fred's answer was going to be no.
But I will absolutely defer to Christine. She's representing the worldwide body, and we would, if that were to happen, that change were to be allowed in the dress code, I know there would be American dancers who would love it. But
Lurex sequins, here we come. So capitalizing on that, because we are a very traditional art form, how do we make the tradition and the heritage and the things that we all love dear, how do we bring that to the next generation? How do we instill in them when everything is just very, very temporary and throwaway and what have you? How do we make them grasp onto the values and the traditions and the Scottishness of what we do and the rich history of it? How do we get the next generation to buy into what we're selling, I guess?
I think it's a matter of, it's not just engaging people in Scottish arts and traditions. I think it's a matter of getting the next generation out of the house and away from video games and these internal activities. I would say that you just need to have a bagpiper walk in a pipe band, walk down the street, or you have one of the athletes toss the caber, or yes, we'll have to have a Highland dancer too as well on the promotional reel. And that certainly drew me. I'm not a Scot, and I love it. And it's part of my blood and my adopted blood, I guess, and family. And I think that will still occur. Scotland, the arts, Scotland itself as a country has a long history, and people are always interested in that. And then as well as with the tradition and the art forms of Scotland, as well as other countries of the world, people will choose what they want to embrace and love and engage in. And yes, we need to, that's why ScotDance, FUSTA has changed to ScotDance USA for our promotional and marketing efforts, so that people understand what we're doing, and that we have Scottish dancing here in the United States, as there is all over the world. And there are young people, dancers of all ages, people of all ages who want to start. And you mentioned previously that dancer numbers may be down, and yes, they're slow to come in right now. We're still gauging how well we are going to do. As Christine mentioned, the registration committee of the RSOBHD has granted the ScotDance USA a very generous extension for the pre-premier dancers, because we know teachers and dancers are going to be coming back at their own pace. People will be anxious. Some people are very excited to get back on the boards and gather in public and all that, but there are people who want to take it a little more cautiously and are going to take their time coming back into the public, into competitions. This extension allows that to happen. We've also found that there are dancers who have retired who are coming back, and they are excited to be coming back. So we're seeing older dancers register. So I think we are confident there will be a small attrition of numbers in dancers and maybe even teachers, but we are confident that we have a new marketing campaign with here at ScotDance USA, a similar line that what the UK's domestic group is doing. We have a professional development group working to engage young teachers, mentoring young teachers to hone their skills and to get dancers in their studios going. That we're going to make it. We'll have to build again, but we'll get back to a very strong organization again.
We're a very, at least in Chicago, you say you do Highland dancing or Scottish dancing and everybody goes, oh, you mean Irish? So I think we need to be extremely vigilant on making ourselves known and trying to get more exposure, because I think it's a very limited number of people that have ever been exposed to it. Do you see any tools that
we still have within our professional development committee, we're working with there are efforts among the committee to work with on activities for adult dancers, and because there is a community of them who are passionate about dancing and competing, and they are good. They also love to do performances. We have several performance groups throughout the country, including yours, Nancy, in the Chicago area, who do videos and are in parades. And that certainly is wonderful outreach for us in the US. We do need to do more of that as we pick up and increase our marketing efforts. I know that we still have a choreography committee within ScotDance USA that has been a little bit on hiatus because of all the other activities we've been focusing on. That will be part of our revitalizing effort as we try to engage new dancers and increase our message or spread or distribute our message to the US community.
Yeah. If I can just come in here, if you don't mind, the point that Fred alluded to there, and I think you'd covered it off as well, Nancy, about your adult dancers, you're 18 and over. Just to give you a reality check, from Monday there, 17th of May, was the first time our 18 and overs have been allowed to come to class since last September, October time. We've only been able to, on the limited times that we were able to offer classes from April, from before Christmas, it was all just the youth, with all the restrictive practices, etc., that were required within your local authority guidelines. But my 18-year-olds and over came in on Monday night, and I've never heard such excitement within that age bracket. And it definitely worked its way through the younger kids, because they're looking at them as if to say, why are they so excited? And then when they start to talk with one another, they were like, oh, that's why you haven't been to class. And can I say they weren't looking pretty and very red-faced going out the door and walking very strangely as they left the studio. However, they were delighted just to be there. They knew they were going to be sore in the morning, but you know what? They didn't care, because they were back seeing one another and doing what they love to do. Now, did they all say, this is not for public viewing just yet? Yes, they did. But the desire is still there to go out and do, whether it's a performance, whether it's competition, whatever. So just wanted to cover that off.
I think one of the most exciting things that I've sort of caught up on here in Chicago is the opportunity and the willingness of the Celtic musicians to include Highland dancers in them. Christine, if you can speak a little bit to that, what's happening with that in Scotland and the performance groups that are out there?
Well, of course, right now that's all on hold, because we're not doing anything. But you know, every dancer, right back to the initial question that you started on, how Highland Games started. Highland dancing is all based fundamentally on the ability to do what is laid down, but it's fundamentally the interpretation to music. So the music goes with the dance, and indeed, as everybody knows, that the style of the music dictates the flow of whichever dance we're doing with that particular piece of music. Performance groups, basically over in Scotland, it comes down to each school being asked to give a performance, you know, and it's in local communities, it's spreading the word, it's advertising, it's building. That will happen. The kids are desperate to do it, but we're just not allowed to do it as yet. But I see no reason for that to change. Obviously, we have the great disappointment amongst our older dancers in their schools right now. The compounding disappointment with the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo not going ahead. So that was another blow for that age bracket. And indeed, obviously, the organisers of the event, and indeed Aileen Robertson, that's put all the hours of work to get it off the ground, and that the planning of that doesn't happen like now. It's already done. But it is what it is. But to answer the question, I have no qualms with that. That will continue, because your musicians and your dancers work well together, and they all want to promote what they do and indeed show everybody how well they can do it.
Right, I see it as a great opportunity to continue showcasing Highland, because all those choreographies that you're doing with the Celtic rock bands, there's all elements of the traditional things in there, and it's just serving to elevate and possibly attract a whole new group of participants to the art form. you know,
Yeah.
wow, I get to do that. I get to dance with a rock band, with a Celtic rock band. How cool is that? So hopefully that trend will continue. What do you see as being a benefit that will, or being on this hiatus, if you can call it a benefit, that will lead us forward? Is it the fact that we've had the opportunity to come together more regularly, even though we're not in person?
Well, I'll speak first. As far as the entire RSOBHD board is concerned, we've been able to, through various modes of video conferencing, all age brackets have embraced it. Every single person has. We've kept our plans happening. We've had our board meetings on our planned dates. Everybody's joined in from all over the world. Fred has, God love him, he's been attending these board meetings at 3 a.m. his time in the morning, 2 a.m., as has our delegates from different parts of the world. That's been a plus. And the fact that we're all able to still see one another, communicate, is it the same? No, it's not the same. But we're all going to have to make decisions based on financial constraints going forward. So certain things will be able to continue as on a video conferencing platform, and some activities it will be better to be face to face. But these are the decisions that we're going to have to make going forward. But isn't it fabulous that we've all been able to continue and embrace what we love doing and see one another? And that goes for family and friends too. As you know, my family, my husband's an American, and his family, my family, they're in Houston, Texas. If we didn't have a video conference platform, we would have to settle for a telephone call, which is just not the same. So by nature of the FaceTiming and Zooms and go-to meetings, we've been able to have social interaction with our family, which it's coming on to a year and a half that we haven't seen them, but we have seen them, just not in person. We've not been able to do that hugging bit yet, but as you know, my sister-in-law Diane she's a hugger, as I would say. So, but lots of good stuff happening through the opportunities from video conferencing. And we've obviously been able to, we've also been able to maintain adjudicators on the panel for judging to maintain their CPD opportunities. And something as simple as delivering a lecture on the new way forward with the One National Book. It's an international audience every time we offer it. It doesn't matter what time zone anybody's living in, and everybody comes on and says, oh, it's so lovely to be part of this. Whereas before it was just a lecture happening in a particular country. And now we're all able to interact in one another's. So that's a huge benefit.
So do you see that continuing post-COVID?
Well, that's what the desire would appear to be, and I haven't heard anybody saying yet no. So I absolutely see that that's the way forward for most things. There'll be certain things that we'll have to get face to face for if it's something, a new project that we want to, but it might be just in the infancy of a project that we have to brainstorm but you know, really we could still do that virtually, but I just see that there's certain activities within certain committees that we would have to do, but in the main, no, all the committees will be able to work this way, I would imagine.
I think that's kind of a huge benefit, actually.
Absolutely.
It has been, but I also think through diversity, or through adversity, also with diversity too, through adversity, we become stronger. And this past year, when we've been physically isolated, I think teachers and dancers have had to become a little introspective about what they want out of Highland dancing, what they're getting, what they're putting into their Highland dancing, and what they want to get out of it. And I know with my communication to my students, we're still on Zoom. I haven't seen them face to face in over a year. we've taken a step back and worked on details, or we've worked on other things that we didn't seem to ever have time to work on because we were pushing for that next competition or performance, or something was happening. We've had the time to step back and gather our thoughts and work on things that needed to be worked on. So I think that's also a benefit and a blessing from these past times.
Yeah, we've also had an upsurge of professionals working towards the next level of within examinations too, and that's all been able to be offered through Zoom. And indeed, my own students that have not been able to come, the 18 and overs, to class, we've been doing. They opted to do, instead of doing a dance class, they wanted to upgrade their theoretical knowledge and go for their membership and their fellowship qualifications. So that's all a huge benefit. And again, they didn't necessarily have or make the time to do that pre-COVID. So it's definitely been a huge benefit.
Absolutely. What is the one thing or the first thing that you're looking forward to of being, it's a two-part question. One, the first part is what's the thing you're looking forward most to doing at the first competition that you attend? And two, what are you looking most forward to at the first games you're able to attend?
Well, as far as competition's concerned, I can make it a reality because I'm going to this pilot event tomorrow in Scotland. And just even the excitement on the Zoom last night from the members of the Health and Safety Party that are involved in coordinating it. The last thing everybody said, it was so exciting. We're going to see one another tomorrow in person. So from that perspective, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. But on reflection and everything that we're actually talking about, I know my goal when I get to Highland Games is I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to go to every single activity. I'm going to go from the bands to the solo piping to every activity that's happening, the wrestling. I don't care what it is because we've missed out on that for such a long time. So there'll be no sleep involved, no having a nap or anything like that. We're just going to do the whole bit. I want
to get your running shoes on and away you go.
Yeah. Full experience will be required.
Fred, how about you?
Well, I attended 2 of our 4 pilot events, and I watched a third one via live stream. So I've had the initial dip in the water already, and it feels good. I think when at the first, I know I'm attending a competition, one of our first on June 5th in Phoenix, and I know I will be very anxious to make sure that we are following our protocols. I'm not sure I'm going to be very comfortable that first day. Maybe I'm attending another one on June 19th here in California, and maybe by then I'll have calmed down a bit that I can enjoy the day. As far as I'm right with Christine as far as fully experiencing the first Highland Games I attend. I'm planning to be at Grandfather Mountain this year, and once I'm confident that our dance venue is secure, I wouldn't mind branching out and seeing what's happening, and I desperately want a meat pie. So
I was hoping you would circle back to the meat pie. Yes, absolutely.